You're going to get to it.
So far, every contract that they've already signed, they did follow.
Okay, I'll take that.
You okay? I don't know. Allergies?
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Good luck. This gentleman that we're celebrating our 100th birthday, and instead of making him come to both places, we're going to do it here. This gentleman's daughter works for us at, I believe she's the floor coordinator in Kimberly Fitzpatrick School.
Very nice. He spreads out into everybody's space. One each.
I know I'm there.
We make it look too easy. I guess so.
Y'all ready?
Sounds like it.
Let's go. Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Minister Steve Clore from the South Side Church of Christ here in Fort Worth. Thank you very much for coming back out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let us pray. Our God and Father, we thank you for this moment where we can pause and remember that we were created by you, that each of us in this room were made in your own image, and every breath that we take today is a gift from you. And we thank you for that. We thank you for this new day and the opportunity to work and to live and be alive in your good world. And as this court convenes, we ask for your guidance and wisdom during the next couple of hours or so. We ask that all the discussions be civil and helpful, and that you would provide discernment in all the decisions that are going to be made. And we ask that every item is viewed impartially, and that the time that we spend here today would bring each one of us in this room closer together. Lord, all of us are here because we love this community, and we love this county, and we love this country. And we're thankful for all those who serve where we live. We're thankful for the commissioners, for the judge. We're thankful for the veterans among us. We're thankful for our leaders, and we ask your blessings upon all of them to help them with honesty and justice to govern and lead well. Lord, there's always concerns that we have in our community, and we ask and we bring those to you at this time. We pray for racial tensions that sometimes are bubbling underneath the surface. We pray for justice and peace and unity. We're concerned about violence in our community, Lord, and we pray that you would give us protection from harm and more love for our neighbor. Lord, we're concerned for the vulnerable among us, whether it's a child in need or a teenager who's struggling with mental health or someone new to our country trying to find their way. We pray that we might have a heart of mercy to care for those among us who struggle. And above all, Lord, we declare that you are worthy of praise, and you're the source of all that is good, and you're the giver of all good gifts. And so today we give thanks to you for all that you have done for us. We pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you for that prayer, Pastor.
Ms. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several announcements on today's agenda. We could go to purchasing. Item 9K5. This is RFP number 2019-236. We're going to hold that at this time. We'll bring that back at a later date. Also on purchasing, item 9K13. We're going to remove that from the consent agenda, and it'll be an action item today. Also, a couple of things is there's going to be an item on the administrator section. It's item 1, actually, that at first we were thinking about doing a briefing item, but this is also an action item. So what you're going to see this morning is a PowerPoint presentation on that, and then we're going to ask for the court to endorse this blueprint of the Adverse Childhood Experience Task Force. And then finally, members of the court, under proclamations, item number 6B, I believe that Councilman Singleton from the City of Fort Worth is going to be making a presentation at the conclusion of our presentation also.
Thank you, sir. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 17th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We do have a couple of proclamations today. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have the first proclamation.
Thank you, Your Honor. This proclamation is in recognition of National Voter Registration Day. And it reads, whereas on September 24th, 2019, Americans will celebrate National Voter Registration Day with a massive 50-state effort to register voters before Election Day this November. And whereas, founded in 2012, National Voter Registration Day is designed to create an annual moment when the entire nation focuses on registering Americans to exercise their most basic right, the right to vote. More than 2 million Americans have registered to vote on this day since the inaugural National Voter Registration Day. And whereas public information and education regarding voter registration will encourage citizen registration and civic engagement in our election process, and whereas Americans can register at hundreds of events across the nation and online at www.nationalvoterregistrationday.org. Supporters can also follow National Voter Registration Day activities through social media on September 24th by searching hashtag National Voter Registration Day. And whereas to assist voters in registering and updating their current registration, the Elections Department will have a presence all day today in every courthouse in Tarrant County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim September 24th, 2019 as National Voter Registration Day across Tarrant County. In witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 24th day of September 2019. And with that, I move approval of this proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Joining me at the podium to accept this proclamation is the Tarrant County Elections Administrator, Mr. Hyder Garcia.
Good morning, Hyder. Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for this, Your Honor. We just want to remind everyone that we will be across the county today and tomorrow in different locations. You can check the website to find where our people will be located to assist voters and registering or updating the registration for people who might have gotten married, changed their names, moved to a different address. It's important that you update your registration before the next election. The deadline for registering for the November 5th election is going to be October 4th. So it's important that everybody updates and is ready to vote. Thank you.
And I'd just like to point out one more thing, and that is that registering to vote is only half the battle. After you register, you actually have to go vote. So we encourage all of our citizens to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is truly my honor now to be able to recognize an individual who has served his country, who has been a great citizen of Tarrant County, and who is about to celebrate his 100th birthday. Captain Please Stewart, and we're going to make this Captain Please Stewart Jr. Day. I'm going to read the resolution, and then Dennis Shingleton, the Mayor Pro Tem from Fort Worth, will come forward and read the city's proclamation. And instead of asking you to come forward and stand through all of this speechifying, we'll ask you and your family to come up afterwards. And what I'd like to do is to move the podium, and then maybe we all go down and kind of stand in the well, and we'll deliver the proclamations at that time. So let me begin. Whereas on September the 27th, 2019, Captain Please Stewart Jr. will be celebrating his 100th birthday, and whereas Captain Stewart attended Greenville Business College after graduating from Cumbie High School in 1938, and whereas Captain Stewart was drafted into the Army in 1941, graduating from Officers Candidate School as a second lieutenant 2 years later, and served in World War II and the Korean War. And whereas Captain Stewart continued his distinguished military career for 20 years in both the Army and Air Force, reaching the rank of captain. And whereas after his military service, Captain Stewart remained in government service working for the Federal Aviation Administration from 1961 through 1979, retiring in Fort Worth. And whereas Captain Stewart married Doris Dean Stewart on July the 11th, 1942, and recently celebrated their 77th wedding anniversary. And whereas Captain and Mrs. Stewart enjoyed camping, traveling the U.S. in their Airstream, and are lifelong members of the St. Luke United Methodist Church. And whereas Captain and Miss Stewart have 3 daughters, Dorcas Lofton, Cindy Gomez, and Sheila Jenkins, and Sheila is the court coordinator for Judge Fitzpatrick's court here in Tarrant County, has 6 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby extend our warmest wishes and congratulate Captain Please Stewart Jr. as an outstanding citizen of Tarrant County on the occasion of his 100th birthday. And be it further resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim Friday, September the 27th, 2019 as Captain Please Stewart Jr. Day in Tarrant County, in witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 24th day of September 2019, and I'll move its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Shingleton, if you'll come forward and read the proclamation from the city of Fort Worth.
While he's coming, I'd like to say to Captain Stewart that September 27th was my mother's birthday. And were she still alive, she'd be 98 this year.
And I will add to that my mother was born on September the 10th, and she would have been 100 on September 10th, born in 1919 also.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Dennis.
Thank you, Judge and Court. On behalf of the Mayor and the City Council, I'm very pleased to be here this morning to read a proclamation from the City of Fort Worth. You know, we all have various things that we are proud of over our many years of life and service, and certainly Captain Pleas Stewart has many of those that he is proud of and certainly should be distinguished for. But the very fact that Doris spent 77 years with this guy is really something to very much be proud of. Okay, thank you. So let me say that this proclamation reads, whereas Pleas Stewart was born on, and this is a bit redundant, September 27th, 1919, in Cumbie, Texas, where he graduated from Cumbie High School in 1938, and whereas Pleas Stewart married Doris Dean Stewart in 1942, having recently celebrated their 77th wedding anniversary. The couple have 3 daughters, 6 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren. And whereas Pleas Stewart was drafted into the Army in 1941, attended Officer Candidate School in 1943, where he graduated as a second lieutenant. It should be he was commissioned a second lieutenant, but graduated, I guess, is okay. He was stationed in Guadalcanal for 2 years, served in the reserves, and then returned to service in the Army during the Korean War. His military career spanned 20 years of combined service in the Army and Air Force. He reached the rank of captain. And whereas Pleas Stewart has lived a life of service to his country, community, family, and faith, and his 100th birthday is to be celebrated. Now, therefore, we, the Fort Worth City Council, do hereby recognize, proclaim, and celebrate September 27th, 2019 as Captain Pleas Stewart Jr. Day, and it's signed by the Mayor and the Council.
So let's go down, and if y'all would like to join me, then we'll head down here. And, yeah. get everybody else behind them. Y'all come on in. You stand right there. Just kind of position yourself right there. Y'all come on in. And you can position yourself right there, and y'all come on through. We want y'all holding on to something. Congratulations.
I'll hold this until the end, and then I'll give you the whole shoot match. You stand here together.
Stand right here together. We'll see if we can get that. Let's turn around the other way, because the cameras are gonna, and they're gonna flash at us 3 times.
We're gonna look this way.
There we go. Come on, Drew. Okay, yeah, you come on up.
We're pretty blocked right here, so, yeah.
When was it?
Mr. Allen. Maybe.
I don't know when the,
If we can make Mr. Allen, yeah.
Yes, that's a good idea. Jump right in.
Commissioner, I want you to go over
Mr.
there.
Allen,
This is,
and then
Okay, now it's Sandy, you in here?
yes, Mr. Ross, sorry.
and that's gonna be flashing from now until cows come home.
Okay, maybe one. One.
There'll be one more.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Now, I tell you what, we'd love for y'all to sit back down. Let's just go ahead and keep going moving.
Good to see it.
Commissioners, we really appreciate y'all. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Judge.
Y'all have a big party, I hope. I'll bet you are. That is special. That's fantastic. Okay, court members, you have before you our consent agenda as mentioned. As amended.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Public hearings? Mr. Maynes?
Thank you, Your Honor. This morning, we're going to have 2 different public hearings. This concerns the preservation and restoration of record archives for both the county clerk and the district clerk. So we're going to ask at this time for the county clerk to come up and make her presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we would like to submit, what you have in front of you, our plan for 2020, our goal. We have a lot of records. We're embracing and harnessing technology where we can. We put things in the cloud. We work with ITD. It's pretty self-explanatory. We look forward to moving with this plan and getting the approval from the court.
This time I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to address this matter. Appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing.
We're recommending that the Commissioners Court approve the plan for the county clerk at this time.
Approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, court.
Members of the court, we could go to item B now. This is a public hearing as it relates to the annual plan for preservation and restoration of the district clerk's records. The district clerk is here to address the court at this time.
Judge, Commissioners, we are proud of the job that our people have done on taking Tarrant County's oldest court records, which date back to the 1870s, and scanning those in, preserving them for posterity where everybody can look up the rich history of Fort Worth. We got quite a bit of publicity this year because we found documents that were Bonnie and Clyde's. Fort Worth, as I say, has a rich history that includes many of the famous outlaws. Luke Short, Bat Masterson, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. All of those are in those records, and we will have those done in a few years and restored that which needs to be restored by the action of this fee being allowed. And we have 12 people working on getting that done. So we very much appreciate the court's willingness to participate in this, and the legislature actually gave us the ability to pay for something that is needed, where we'll have a backup to the court records as well as the records themselves preserved. I ask for your approval of our plan.
This time I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There being none, then I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we could go to the administrator's section on item 1. This is the item that we spoke of briefly at the beginning of the Commissioners' Court meeting today. What we're going to do is receive a presentation from the ACE Task Force, and after that, then we're going to request that the Commissioners' Court approve the endorsement of the blueprint for that you're about to hear. There's going to be several speakers this morning. The first one I'd like to introduce Mr. Rick Merrill, who is President and CEO of Cook's Children, and he will introduce the program.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. 2007, Cook Children's embraced a bold promise to improve the health of every child in our region through the prevention and treatment of illness, disease, and injury. It's a promise that we take very seriously, and it is front and center of every decision that we make at Cook Children's, be it strategy, be it policy, being any kind of programmatic development. This is the center of our decision making. And through a series of comprehensive community-wide surveys over these past few years, Cook Children's has identified 7 key areas that you see on the slide that we are working on to make a difference in the health of children in each of these 7 key areas. 2 years ago, a partnership was forged between Cook Children's, the county, the city, JPS, and Commissioner Brooks' office to work toward reducing ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences, in the Stop 6 Cavill Place area. We very much appreciate the ongoing support and commitment of each of these partners, but I will say to you, and you will learn this in hearing from Dr. Partap, by reducing and eliminating ACEs, we actually will impact every one of these key 7 areas. This pilot task force is being led by Dr. Anu Partap, who is our physician director for the Cook Center for Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect. For those of you who've met Dr. Partap, you know that she is an absolute delight to be around, but she brings incredible expertise, years of expertise and experience. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to her.
Good morning, Doctor. How are you?
Good morning, Judge Whitley, commissioners. I haven't been called delightful in a while, so that was nice to hear. I appreciate that, Mr. Merrill. It has been an honor to really work alongside the task force members, and we have over 60 partners who have been working hard with us over the last year. We have a very simple aim, and that aim is to prevent and reduce adversities prenatally to age 5 to improve health, safety, and school readiness. I've been a pediatrician for 20 years and seen thousands of patients and listened to their struggles and watched them not quite have their children reach that potential they want them to, built programs, opened clinics, done research and policy, and always felt like I was just off center until I joined Cook Children's and joined this task force. And our task force work and the strategies we're introducing you today, I finally feel a lot of hope and opportunity about what we can accomplish together. The first thing to do to really hear the strategies is to give you some background about ACEs. So ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's a term coined 20 years ago, and what they studied was they identified there's life experiences before the age of 18 that are associated later with high-risk behaviors, chronic disease, reduced quality of life in adulthood. So the idea that what happens to you when you're 3, 4, or 5 years old will matter to you when you're 30, 40, or 50. The researchers from the CDC asked a bunch of questions, but these 10 questions emerged as the most important. You have them for reference, but to sort of give you what they mean, the first 5 questions listed there were questions I asked adults about their childhood experience with being a victim of childhood abuse or neglect. The next 5 questions asked adults, when you were a child, were your parents separated or divorced? Was there a caregiver who was a victim of domestic violence? Was there a caregiver who had addiction? Was there someone who suffered from untreated mental illness, or a household member who went to prison? What was so transformational about this research is that these are topics that we never talk about, right? These are things we were taught not to talk about if they're happening. What they discovered is that 40% of adults across demographics have experienced one or more of these adversities in their childhood. What that does from a picture of hope, because that can feel pretty overwhelming to think 40% of adults have actually experienced 2 or more of these adversities before 18, it begins to melt the stigma away. And it's hard to tackle a topic when no one wants to talk about it. But this sort of says we are all equally at risk of experiencing something that may just become a part of life. To give you an idea of individual frequencies, 10 to 34% of adults have grown up with being a victim of abuse or neglect. Almost a third of adults grew up in a household with a parent with substance abuse. 17 to 18% of adults have grown up with a caregiver who is a victim of domestic violence or a parent with mental illness. And then 8% who had a family member who was incarcerated. And when you look at these, you don't have to think too hard that these are going to be things that affect you lifelong. The question always comes up, though, what about those living in poverty? Is this really a poverty issue? These statistics are across income, education, demographics, ethnicity, race. Are folks who live in poverty, those with a household income of less than $15,000, adults who are unemployed, adults who didn't finish high school, they did experience more adversity in their childhoods than their peers. As a health system completely dedicated to children, we wanted to highlight some of the ways that we experience children who are living with adversity. I could have listed 100 conditions. These are just a few. But the 3 buckets are it affects children in their safety, their health, and their learning. To highlight a few of these, on the safety side, we talk a lot about infant mortality. When you begin to apply an adversity lens to the infant mortality discussion, it allows us to think more broadly about what are the true factors that are leading to our children dying before their first birthday. On the health side, developmental delays. Commissioner Brooks is doing transformational work, making sure our children get screened early in life for developmental delays. That's an early red flag that a family is living with adversity first and foremost. We need to ask those questions. Poorly controlled asthma. Judge Whitley, through your work with school districts, poorly controlled asthma is more frequent in families who are living with adversity. Mental health concerns begin emerging, as well as truancy and absenteeism. Telling a child, you got to get yourself to school, you've got to show up, is great, except if the reason they're missing is because of early life adversity or these stressors in their home. That changes the conversation to one of compassion. If when you turned 18 it all disappeared, this would be easy, right? We would just focus on getting you to 18. But it turns out that what happens in childhood is almost like an imprint on what can happen to you lifelong. If you look at these conditions, Adults who grew up with adversities that we've talked about, those 10 factors, are more likely to suffer from high-risk behaviors, chronic disease, and lower life potential as adults. 2 to 5 times higher to experience things like alcoholism, drug use, depression, heart disease, cancer. These are all conditions our county has been focused on helping adults with. But if what we're treating at 50 or 60 began in childhood, the task force is focused on identifying what do we do better upstream. For the task force to understand how to identify effective strategies, we had to understand the link between what happens in childhood and what happens in adulthood. There's been a lot of science over the last 20, 30 years pointing to simplifying what the impact really is. So you'll see the original adversities listed there for you with the additions of housing instability and food insecurity. What really happens when you live with these factors is that it affects this maternal or parental-child bond. When the child experiences the loss of a nurturing caregiver, that's the dynamic that begins to set in motion the things that are associated with these learning, health, and safety impacts in childhood and adult chronic disease. So a lack of a nurturing caregiver during early years triggers actually an abnormal neurophysiological stress response. That's the only medical term I'll use, but it's an important concept. That these stressors in early childhood and childhood actually create pathways in your brain that trigger to your entire body that are then subsequently linked with impairment of safety, health, learning, and life potential. It takes an enormous conversation and simplifies it that we need to help our families remain a nurturing present caregiver and help support them through their adversities. The urgency of this topic is that the more ACEs you live with in childhood, it begins to impair your life potential. So there's a cumulative effect when you have 2 or more or 3 or more adversities in your home. So the task force is dedicated to really preventing the safety, health, and learning problems before age 5, really go upstream to prevent negative adult outcomes. What this allows us to do then is you have adversities in the childhood, you have a child who's been affected, you have that child become an adult who is at much higher risk of physical and mental health and life potential problems. That adult goes on to become a parent, and what the task force is committed to doing is breaking this cycle. You probably don't see a heart shape a whole often bunch in a medical conversation, but that's what this is about. It's about wrapping ourselves around families who are living with adversity. The task force recognized early that we have lots of systems of care that already meet our families who are living with adversity prenatally to 5. There is not one system who's going to fix this problem. It is going to take all of us collectively working, and that is the strategy we want to present to you today. Because of the task force membership being so effective and having a broad partnership, we have partners in every single one of these spheres who are at the table helping us tackle this issue. I'm going to focus on the Tarrant County-wide strategies, but we have collective strategies funded with our community as well as Cook Children's. The blueprint that we are here for you to consider endorsing today is the first one I want to talk about. Starting in December until about May, we had 60 partners identify initially 169 strategies to support families prenatally to age 5 who are living with adversity, and over a very comprehensive process have identified the top 25 priorities for helping our families succeed in those early years. Those 25 are presented to you as a blueprint. They are tiered. We've divided them into what happens first, what should happen subsequently, and what should happen third. With the endorsement, that will allow us to really reach out to all of our partnerships countywide and align our efforts and resources synergistically. We also are pursuing a really exciting project that we hope launches in the next couple of months. Tarrant Cares is already a trusted go-to for a web-based repository of information. We have listened to our families in the Stop 6 area, and we believe they reflect families Tarrant County-wide. Everyone's moved towards texting, so we are going to add a texting platform to Tarrant Cares. You would text what you need, food, shelter, medical care, and receive a listing of what is in your zip code to help you get started when you have that moment of hope that you want a better outcome for your family. We know our workforce has to be compassionate and prepared to help serve families living with adversity. I'm really proud to present that DFPS had 10 counties participate in mandatory CPS training for 800 CPS employees to understand adversity, so they are already feeling better equipped to better serve their families. Promoting access to primary care is always a priority. Because of the impact in early life, we need to catch our children early, so when they do show up for developmental delays, let's get them into primary care. If an adult is struggling with addiction, let's make sure they receive that comprehensive health care. I realize there's many cities in Tarrant County. We wanted everyone to be aware that we are piloting specific strategies in Fort Worth so that we can make them scalable and replicable across our county. The intent's not to be only Fort Worth focused, but to at least begin where we have some partnerships and leadership who are engaged. We could not do this work without the partnerships we have. It has been truly humbling and a blessing to work with everyone around the table. I believe we might have time for questions, but I thank you for your time today and consideration for the blueprint.
Thank you.
Questions? Comments?
Comments.
Thought there might be a couple of us.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank Dr. Partap and Rick Merrill from Cook Children's for recognizing the need to address adverse childhood experiences. But this is just a part of an integrated care strategy that, when focused intensively on children 0 to 5, let us say, is probably the only thing that can break the cycle of generational poverty in our communities. Poverty is an adverse childhood experience. And to the extent that we can get children ready to learn in that 0 to 3 and 3 to 5 year old age group, when their brains are just sponges and they can learn everything that you throw at them. And if you couple that with interventions that will address adverse childhood experiences that they acquire along the way, what you end up is a prescription for healthy human beings that can grow up and live successful lives. This is critically important work. It's critically important that we get it right, focused on the Stop 6 community, and that we then scale it up so that it has a county-wide impact. I thank you for taking this on and for leading the task force. And I thank Rod Miles from my office and Chandler Merritt from Judge Whitley's office and the many others who have served on this task force and have designed this program and are now ready to roll it out in this community. Having said all of that, I move that this Commissioner's Court adopt and endorse the blueprint for addressing adverse childhood experiences that Cook Children's Hospital has laid out before us this morning.
I'll second. I would just like to echo again what Commissioner Brooks has said. You know, oftentimes, as we advocate for early childhood development, people will say, well, now, wait a minute, why is the county doing that? You're not a school, you're not this, you're not that. But what I think we have all come to recognize and understand is that if we don't find a way to help these children from 0 to whenever they enter formal public education, then we are going to, it's going to be very difficult to ever break that cycle of poverty and to give them the opportunities that that most of us enjoyed and allowed us to be successful in the whole ACES effort. has really, to me, brought home just how critical those traumatic events are and how influencing they are on the lives of these children as they move forward. So I want to applaud Cooks, not only for this effort, but you have been there for any time there is any effort in the community that has anything to do with children. We can always count on you. The Asthma 411 effort, when we were talking about that a couple of years ago, and I said, okay, the first thing the school district's going to ask for is what's it going to cost us, and it may not cost us anything in the beginning, but what's it going to cost us go forward? After about the third time, Cook said, forget about it. We'll take care of the cost. If somebody else doesn't step forward and want to do it, we will be glad to be there and do it. The same thing with Tarrant Cares, which has now been in existence here for close to 10 years, if not over. Cooks has been a participant and has helped support that effort throughout the life of that particular program. You're seeing now that we're going to expand it to the texting. Tarrant County is by far the most successful site of this network of care, is what it's called, the rest of the country. We were able to get them to agree to let us change it to Tarrant Cares, but we've created a new unit called for reentry. We have got all kinds of folks. It's really, I point to it as the shining example of where government is not the answer, but it collaborates with nonprofits and with other organizations who have the same goals as we go forward. And certainly those goals are goals that you have led the charge in, and this is just another example of what I think is truly an effort that, and I agree, when y'all first started talking about it, you said we're going to focus it on one area instead of shotgunning it all over. And I really believe that that's the way we're going to see it successful and then grow it to be a county-wide effort that everybody will want to be a part of and participate in. So thank you very much, Rick. Thank you and your board for all that they do for our community and have done for many, well, they've done it for decades. I was going to say years, but it's been decades. So I, too, am very encouraged and very excited about this effort.
I'll add, one, echo the remarks of my colleagues, and I'm very supportive of this, probably more obviously from a policy-making standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, given that I had many adverse childhood experiences. I mean, like a long list of them. We don't have the time today for me to share my story, but I will say that one of the biggest hindrances that I found that I had to overcome was the shame of what some of those experiences were. Same with my parents. You know, all of us make choices, and some of them have positive consequences, and some of them have negative consequences. And I see here on your circles of support in ways to support women and children and caregivers, it talks about, you know, some of the ways that we can help to promote healing, and that's what it is. And so I thank you all for the work that you're doing, and let me know how I can be of service to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, as well as the other comments. And anything we've accomplished from Cook Children's with this work has truly been in partnership with this court, with the mayor's office. We really have it's been a wonderful partnership. So thank you, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Again, thank you all, and we look forward to making this a huge success. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 2. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a letter of engagement between the county and Deloitte & Touche to serve as the county's outside auditor for the fiscal year, which will end September 30th, 2019.
I know this is as exciting to y'all as the other efforts that we've had, but I will move approval.
Thank you.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could move to item number 3. This is a request to the Commissioners Court for the approval of Tarrant County 911 Emergency Assistance District's proposed 2019-20 2020 budget. You all have been previously briefed on this. We have staff from 911 here to answer any questions that you may have.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, if we can go to item number 4, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve interim funding in an amount not to exceed $30,000 for the continuation of the Sheriff's Department's Victim Assistance Program. This is for a period not to exceed 90 days.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And finally, members of the Court, on item number 5, we're requesting that the Commissioners concur with actions of the Hospital District Board of Managers and approve a lease agreement between Tarrant County Hospital District and Tarrant County doing business as the Resource Connection.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Hill.
How are you?
Good. How are y'all?
Good.
Depends.
Depends. Well, we're bringing the last part of the budget, the 2020 budget. This is a special purpose budget, and we're asking for approval of our proposals.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And
And
Travis,
Almost unanimous.
congratulations on
Thank
a
you.
very successful budget process.
thank you. Travis will present the next one.
The motion passes 4-1. It did not pass unanimously.
Good morning. See, the Risk Management Board recommends 4 claims for your approval this morning. The claim details are in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Garcia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have 4 items today to ask the court for. First one I have is the approval of the proposed rental rates for voting equipment. We had a briefing item last week to talk about this a little bit. As specified by the Texas Elections Code, the county is allowed to set a rental rate for the equipment that is used in the elections of the entities that enter into contract with my office. The court has to decide a rate so that I can proceed to rent that equipment to the entities.
So, Hunter, you presented on page 2 of your court communication, you have 4 columns. One is a matching rate, one is a low rate, one is a mid rate, and another one is a max rate. The matching rate, is that the current rate that we charge?
Yes, because the change of the type of equipment, there is a different way of calculating the cost. It used to be everybody had the same thing on election day, 1 scanner, 1 electronic machine. Now, depending on the size of the location, you'll have more or less machines. So the matching rate was as close as I could get in the simulation to what the expected cost would be with the new model.
So that's as close to what the jurisdictions are currently paying as you could
Correct.
match.
Correct, because as I said, the cost is calculated differently now that you have different numbers of equipment in every location.
So again, I think my question, and I've gotten mixed responses, so I'm not sure I know exactly where we are, what we're talking about. But the actual cost, the hard cost, I don't want any allocation of equipment, amortization or depreciation or any of that. My feeling is that if the state is requiring us to have an election, then I'm not sure, I feel like we should be charging other entities that choose to put something on there, so that if I have a 1-line bond issue on there, that I'm going to get to pay X amount, when really the cost of the election goes back to the number of places. And we want polling sites, probably the same polling sites that we were going to have on general election, which would be not an off-year deal. How much, as I recall in looking at this, our off-year elections normally are running somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million. Our general elections are running somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.8 million.
That's a good average.
And I think our municipal elections are running somewhere in the neighborhood of $800,000 to $900,000.
Correct.
Of which, well, so I mean, on the municipal elections, I do think that's appropriate to be charging the cities and the districts, school districts, and anybody else who has something on those particular ballots, and to charge them for that election. But I guess we're talking about, if we don't charge cities anything, we're giving up about how much actual revenue was for the last November election.
Judge Ridley, may I address your question briefly? Based on the briefing last week, some of the questions you had, we put in a closed session item to answer some of those legal questions for you. So if the court wants to, I would like to address the court on some of the legalities of what to charge municipalities before the court votes on it. If we can take it about the close, I think it may be appropriate to do so, and to answer the legal aspect of your question. I talked to Hyder about this, of the legal aspect of your questions in the closed session item.
I know that I'm going to regret this. But I guess the question is I hope you're going to be able to explain to me why there's anything that we could be doing in closed session that we should not be talking about in public.
Yes, Your Honor, and I'm not going to address any of the practical aspects. I mean, I think Hyder can do that, but as it comes to the specific legal questions and explaining, in this particular section, it's a particular section from the election code. I think that's best answered in a closed session environment with providing legal advice to the court. And I think it will answer some of your questions as far as the legality of what you charge municipalities.
My questions are more along the lines of what makes it a closed session item versus something that we discuss in the public.
It's the legal advice aspect, Your Honor, and I would prefer not to give legal advice to the court, to any of my clients in an open session environment, and we're legally allowed, of course, to go to closed session and have that.
Then at this point in time, unless y'all object, we'll hold it until after closed.
I will tell you that we had talked about this last week, and I simply had forgot to mention it in the announcement that we were going to request that we hold this until after you all were briefed on legal issues on this. So if we could just delay it until we get back out of closed.
Okay.
I do have one question, though, that I think could be answered. Is last week there was some discussion about some revenue numbers for 2017 and 2015. I don't know that I got those.
So, 2017, Mayor.
Why don't we just wait till?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I believe the auditor is going to be ready to answer your questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll move to the next item. The next thing I'm asking the court today is to approve the appointment of county election judges and alternate judges. This is according to the elections code. We have prepared the list and assignments of election judges to our polling places. Even though we had done some of this earlier in the year as required by law, the fact that we joined the countywide polling place program required us to work with the parties to redistribute some of those assignments. So the list that I'm bringing today is that redistribution happening.
Having been assured that both party chairs and their organizations have participated in this process,
yes, Your Honor,
I will move approval.
Second. We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
the next item I have is the request to approve the approval of Election Day polling location changes for the joint and special general elections to be conducted on November 5th. When we talked about the vote centers, we had a goal of using the 340 locations with no reductions, but some of those locations have not been available. This is a usual process. We did this last year as well. So the list that you have in front of you is the locations that we were able to confirm, and for those that were not available, there's a justification as to why we were not able to secure them.
So I have a question for
Yes, ma'am.
precinct 2180. The proposed location is Asia Times Square. The previous polling location was the local 276. So why couldn't that local be used anymore?
2180?
Which one was it?
Precinct 2180.
Right, so that one's not, we didn't drop that one. That one's a change. We're just making it obvious to the court that we used to have this place at UAW, and now we moved to Asia Times Square. It's what we talked about earlier in the year of being consistent and easier for voters, so they don't spend 2 weeks seeing the election happening in one place on early voting, and then on election day we shut down and move to another place. So we lined those up, and we're staying in the early voting place on election day as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Do any of y'all have any other questions about, I'm assuming you've talked with everybody about
I have,
any
Your Honor.
changes that have occurred?
That's it. That's correct, Your
And you
Honor.
talked with her about this one?
Not this one. We talked about the ones that were dropped, but we didn't talk about this one particular, but they had the data and the
But
list.
this was a change.
Yes.
I move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. My last item is the request for approval of the permanent branch early voting sites for the joint and general special elections on November 5th. This year we'll be using 44 locations. The list is attached to the communication.
Move approval.
Oh, wait, sorry, I've got to go.
Oh.
I have a question.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
wait, see if there's,
Did you second?
I did not, I have a question.
I'll second so we can discuss it.
Okay, great, thank you. So, looking at the early vote list, unless I missed it, so is UT Arlington not on the list?
That's correct, Your
Okay.
Your Honor.
Why?
We have a different set of sites that we use between the even years and the odd years
Okay.
because of turnout. So traditionally, this has been the list that's been used every odd year.
So traditionally, for this type of election, are you saying that we have not utilized UTA?
Correct.
Would you like to suggest that they do, or would you like to hold this matter until you've looked at it more fully?
Yeah, well, I'd like to.
We're going to hold the matter.
Okay.
Till when?
Till whenever, I guess, he gets around and talks with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn.
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you and good morning. We have two additional items. Item 2, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for Precinct 4. Commissioner Johnson is requesting a waiver of 240 vacation hours effective September 30th, the details of which are outlined in your communique. The net cost of this item we're estimating to be a little bit more than $8,900. That does include fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our third and final item will be presented by Ms. Worthy.
Morning.
Good morning.
Ooh, she's tall. So I'm here to discuss our benefit plan changes and selections and recommendations for you today for plan year 2020. So these will go into effect January 1st. Over the last few months, the PEBC board has been considering various benefit options for this plan year. PEBC went out for proposals on medical, pharmacy, EAP mental health, group term life, HSA administration, flexible spending administration, COBRA, and retiree billing. So on these following exhibits, I'll discuss those recommendations and selections and ask you to approve each exhibit independently. And of course, we'll welcome any kind of questions. Let me first go through what vendors have been selected for each type of service. For medical, we will continue with the United Healthcare, so there will be no major plan changes, and that will be the same provider panel or network. For Employee Assistance Program, the selection is United Healthcare Optum. For mental health, it is United Healthcare Optum. For Health Savings Account, or HSAs, it will be United Healthcare Optum. Flexible Spending Accounts, or our FSAs, is United Healthcare Optum. For COBRA and Retiree Direct Billing, it will be United Healthcare Optum. For pharmacy, we are going with CVS Caremark. And for group life insurance, it's the Hartford Company. So after all of this was approved by the board, the internal Tarrant County Benefits Committee met and reviewed annual funding requirements that was provided by Gallagher. Gallagher is the consultant to the PEBC for benefits, and they have made recommendations. So I'm going to go over each of these exhibits independently and ask you to approve them independently. So the first exhibit is Exhibit A, and it is going to outline various plan changes. So as I said, our medical plan is going to stay the same with United Healthcare. However, there are some other changes. So pharmacy, we are going with a new vendor, which is CVS Caremark. Now that does not mean that we can only go to CVS Pharmacy. They have a broad network. This vendor will provide both mail order, retail, and specialty services. And that current $10 upcharge for using some of the pharmacies, the main pharmacies, is going to be discontinued. Under the medical plan, we are recommending an add of what is called the Real Appeal Weight Loss Program. That has been something that has been reported to us through United Healthcare that they think that we need to do some improvements on. This is an online weight loss program for eligible employees. There is no cost to the employee. The plan is actually billed as a claim under preventive care. The maximum cost for each participating employee would be $738. So employees can report their own progress online, either through the United Healthcare website, or there is an actual Real Appeal app. So each participant will go online and fill out what is called an online behavioral assessment. And once they've done that, they'll be part of the program, and they get a success kit, which is pretty cool. It's a big old box of stuff. They get a scale, a blender. Yes,
Blender.
Yes, everybody talked a lot about the blender. There are tools that help with portion control, books, recipes. It was a wide variety of tools in this box. And so this is part of the medical plan, so it is HIPAA-protected medical information, and none of the information that you put on that assessment or your weight or anything like that would be shared with us as the employer. That will stay only with United Healthcare. So let's see. Number 3 on Exhibit A.
Robin, before
Yes.
you move on.
Yes.
So is this replacing something else that was part of like a previous benefit?
We have not had any other previous weight loss program through our healthcare. We, for a while, had Weight Watchers at Work, That quit several years ago. We didn't have enough participation. That was fully employee paid. Now, the Rally program for points does have some online things that you can use, but it's not a formal weight loss program like this one is.
Great, thank you.
And what is it that the employee will receive that amounts to $738?
So they will be able to participate in online group classes. They will get coaching, and a little bit similar to some other more public weight loss programs that you can attend kind of an online class together, exchange ideas, get coaching, share recipes, that kind of thing. And then of course, there'll be weigh-ins on their own scale at home and reporting is the way I understand it. Okay. So our next item is mental health and behavioral health services. So previously, this was a carve-out, and it will not be a carve-out any longer, as it will be now provided by United Healthcare Optum. And this will allow members broader access to their network. It is a comparable network to what we've had before. Based on reviews, there doesn't appear there'll be any gaps in services for our employees with this change. The next item is Employee Assistance Program. This, again, is a new vendor with United Healthcare Optum. While they did come in with the lowest cost plan, they actually offered more benefits than we had previously. So now we will provide to our employees 5 free face-to-face visits rather than the 3 that were provided, and this is per incident per year. In addition to that, first responders will be eligible for 3 additional for a total of 8. And again, this is a broad network of providers. For the next item, these are account limits. This is based on the IRS. So for the health savings account or the HSA, these account limits apply to both employee-employer combined donation or contributions. So for a single coverage under the HSA, it will increase to $3,550 from $3,500. For HSA family coverage, it will increase to $7,100 from $7,000. The HSA also allows a catch-up contribution for those 55 and older, and it allows an additional $1,000 contribution. Under the FSA, this is employee-only contribution that this applies to. Its maximum limit has gone from $2,650 to $2,700. We also have a new vendor for administrative services for our flexible spending account, our COBRA, and our retiree direct billing, and this will now go to United Healthcare Optum from PayFlex. Okay. So I'm moving to page 3 of Exhibit A, if I can make the pages turn. And this is to discuss our group term life. We also have a new vendor here. It's the Hartford Company. And employees during this annual enrollment only will be able to add or increase their coverage without an evidence of insurability due to the change in vendor. This year, we will ask the court to consider one of 2 options for life insurance. This is the basic life insurance that we provide to our employees. It is currently being offered as one-time employee salary with a minimum amount of $20 and a maximum amount of $50. So those employees that were earning over $50,000 still only got a $50,000 policy. And this is a basic term life insurance policy. So currently we are paying $350,000, a little over $350,000 a year for this particular plan this way. Option 1 would be to continue with those same limits. So we would continue with a range of $20,000 to $50,000 to be offered to the employee. The estimated premium for that is $192,384. Our option 2 would be allowing us to expand that maximum amount up to an employee's full salary, 1 year time their salary, to a maximum of $350,000. While we don't currently have anyone in the county that earns that, that does give us some growth room, that maximum. The estimated cost for this premium would be $257,310. So you can see it's, even for this expanded program, it's less expensive than we currently have. Now, while this would be a value-added benefit for those individuals that earn $50,000 or more than $50,000, it does have an impact in the employee salaries that are marked $50,000 or more will be responsible for paying taxes on what is the imputed income portion of this benefit. So that would be a change.
Will you say that one more time?
I will. Okay? So, yeah, that's different.
Let me kind of inject something into this. Yes, there's a taxable portion for anything over $50,000. And so what the IRS, and I'll use myself as an example for 2 reasons, is I'm not disclosing any information that I don't know that I'm disclosing, I don't think. And secondly, I'm an old fart. At least as old as most people on this court. Well, no, I'm the second youngest on this court. But regardless,
You're still on old Ford.
I'm still an old Ford. I buy optional, at this point in time, I have bought an optional 1 times my annual compensation. And if you look at that, you know, that's somewhere around 180, or it has been. And if I looked at that and looked at what the IRS was going to impute as income and then charge me tax on, you know, my monthly premium was a little over $500 a month, so I was paying about $6,000 a year toward this additional insurance. If by going to this method, what will happen is the IRS will impute, again, based upon my age and what we're paying, will impute about $2,200 of income to me for the amount in excess of the 50. And so when you then multiply that times the tax rate, individual tax rate, around 24%, which is about the maximum for that area, it will cost me $500 in taxes for that additional insurance, which is currently costing me $6,000 as a result. The county is providing this for basically $100,000 less than what we have been paying for just the reduced coverage. When I went to the TCDRS conference this past summer was when I first heard that, you know, TCDRS offered this, and I recognized, and it was, you know, it was not going to be that much money, but when I came back and talked, there's a lot of things that by going through our program of benefits that we're eligible for that we would not have otherwise been eligible for with TCDRS. A couple of examples. If we had done this through TCDRS, it would have only applied to an active employee within Tarrant County. We would not have been able to buy the additional insurance if we wanted more additional insurance as an individual. We would not have been able to buy insurance on dependents or spouses. And when we eventually retired or moved elsewhere, we would not have been able to continue that coverage. So there was any number of reasons, and we were in the middle of an RFP, and when we did that, and we asked Hartford, or we asked all of the companies to go back and say, okay, if we change this and said instead of it being a maximum of 50, we're going to put a maximum of 1 time salary, then it still came back far less than what we were currently paying for the reduced coverage. But there is a taxable, but it's very, very minuscule. And you know, again, if you look at those of us who are a little bit older, I mean, we're not in the high, I'm not in the highest range. There are a couple of people who are getting pretty close to that. But it's the 70 plus, and so I'm in the second highest, which would be the 65 plus from that perspective. And so I think we're talking about an extremely small amount of tax consequences if you were to opt and take the total amount available from that standpoint. It'll show up on your W-2. It will be there, and will be something that when you turn it over to when you prepare your own tax return or you turn it over to somebody to prepare it for you, they will see that and they'll pick that up. So.
Okay. There's just some free CPA advice.
That's right.
Moving right along.
He's making the assumption I'm not going to send invoices to everybody after. I know what your response would be to that invoice, but we don't need to be talking about it.
Send me.
Craig had his hand in the air.
So this will go into box 1, 3, and 5. So those that are not maxed out on their FICA, it will impact their FICA calculation also. There are currently roughly 25 2,500 employees that are over $50,000 in salary. So there are, and that's active filled positions. There's roughly 4,500 total, so there's a couple of thousand that won't be impacted at all. But again, yes, the impact will be very, very small unless you're make a lot and you're really, really old. But again, it's
Excuse you?
I'm that good too. I'm old. I admit it.
It's a good thing to be old.
So then
Certainly better than the alternative.
those three factors that you mentioned that weren't options in TCDRS, you're saying that they are options with us, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
This plan will not only, the court will be able to choose between these two plans that are provided to the employee, but also there is optional life offered under this that you can select as an employee, and that those programs have some of the options that the TCRS does not.
Okay.
So if there's no more questions on Exhibit A, I will ask for approval of Exhibit A and also identify either option 1 or 2 under the life insurance.
I move approval of Exhibit A with option 2 under the life insurance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, so I will move to Exhibit B1. So B1 is several pages, and it is actually identifying who our service providers are, our fees, and our premiums on some of these plans. We have highlighted those that have changed. The majority of those changes are actually reductions because we went out for proposals on so many different plans. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of these if you have them.
I just have questions on the two areas where it says to be determined. So one is under number 8, the stop loss premium, and then the second is under 13 with the COBRA administration fee, the HIPAA certificate.
Right, so stop loss, actually they are PEBC, sorry, not they. PEBC is in the process of having done a proposal for our stop loss vendor as well, and that was not completed in time for us to present to this. We'll bring this back to you probably in October as to who our stop loss provider will be. And I may have to have some help on that second one.
I think that PBC's in the process of going through the implementation with United Healthcare, and to date, they really hadn't identified how a HIPAA certificate is going to be handled. When we come back to the court for approval of the stop loss, by then we should know that, so we'll make an item there.
And then there were some fees, some monthly rates that went up.
Number 13?
Yes.
Yes. So that is an increase on administrative fees for the annual one-time card. When you chose a Flex card, in the past, employees had to pay for that, and so that will no longer be there. There will be a participant, which is a member, monthly administrative fee paid by the employer, and that did increase by 20 cents. But all the rest of the fees were reductions. Oh, I'm sorry. Number 14, there were some increases for the PMD and PSD for dependents. I know this is a lot of information.
I guess the one question that I'm going to ask, and I know we voted on this by kind of ballot, and I didn't check to see what the end result was going to be, but I noticed that our dental did not change.
Our dental carrier?
No, our dental rates.
Well, our dental rates for the DHMO is not changing, but for the dental PPO plan, we are recommending changes later in this presentation.
Okay, then that was my question. Okay, do I have a motion?
Wait, so with
Not
those.
Not yet. That's okay.
Well, you might, but depending on these two to be determined, we're voting on it with the exclusion of these two?
Yes,
okay.
that would be correct.
Very good. Well, in that case, I make a motion that we accept their proposal with the two exclusions.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Exhibit B2, that is the dental plan where you will see the increase. This is the for both employee and retiree. We found that we had increased experience in that particular account of nearly 21%, and this is fully paid by the employee, this particular plan, and so that increase is passed on and those premiums have increased. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, or I would look for approval of Exhibit B2.
So that seems like a pretty substantial increase, though.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Our experience was that we were spending more than we were bringing in based on the employee contribution, and this is supposed to be fully supported by employee payment and premiums, and it wasn't being, and so we've had to increase that, or the recommendation is to increase that.
Move approval of Exhibit B2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I will just say that we changed carriers last year, and we saw this increase occur. And I think there may be an effort afoot to go back out next year and look, because our consultants are saying that there may be certain things that cause that to go up. And if we determine that that is because of the carrier we selected, then we will go back out, because the 2 previous years under the previous carrier, we actually had surpluses.
Right.
And so for us to go from surpluses to a, 20% increase over was something that we were all surprised to find out. So it is what it is. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
So now if you'll go to Exhibit C1, and this is the page that covers employee medical. As I said before, we will continue with United Healthcare. Our experience has been for this one with the high deductible plan. It has performed very well, and we actually had a surplus in what we had anticipated we would expend. The PPO has not performed as well, meaning that we have spent more money out of that, and it's considered to be costing more. So the following rate recommendations are being made, and I'll explain what this chart is covering in just a moment. Let me first go through. The anticipated medical trend is 5.8% increase. Pharmacy is trending for outpatient pharmacy at 7.7%. So if these current experiences hold during plan year 2020, it's estimated that our cost will increase by nearly 11%, higher than 2019. Now, we are expecting some improvements on discounts and rebates with some of the new vendors, but that can't be guaranteed at this time until we identify how that works. Administrative fees are up some. There is some estimate that our stop loss will increase as we have had some expensive claims. The recommendation will be that the high deductible plan rates will remain the same. We'll continue with the $750 seed money, and that the PPO rates will increase. Now, if you look at the chart on C1, the top chart is 2019 costs and figures. The bottom chart is 2020. So in this yellow column, if an employee has a PPO right now and they continue with the PPO, for employee only, that will increase by $17 per month. Yes, these are per month fees. An employee and spouse will increase by $49 per month. An employee and children will increase $36 per month, and an employee and family will increase $58 a month. So those are the recommended increases for employee rates. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have about that. Or to ask for approval for Exhibit C1.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. I would just say I would certainly like to encourage folks to consider the high deductible. I really feel like from both from a tax standpoint, but also if you can put some money aside, that money will always be, if you don't end up using it from year to year, you don't have to worry about losing it. And if you ever leave the county, that money is your money to take with you. So,
and your health savings accounts are triple tax protected. They're
Yeah.
not taxed when you put them in, and they're not taxed when they
it
come
is
out.
the only form of tax advantage where you ultimately don't end up paying tax on the money after you draw it out, as long as you use it for medical. So quite honestly, I tell folks, you should max out this before you do anything else from a retirement standpoint. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We'll now go to Exhibit C2. This is our pre-65 retirees, so they're not Medicare eligible. This chart reflects a matrix that we've had in place for many years. This chart shows that we charge the pre-65 retirees based on years of service. And this chart also reflects an increase for both the HDP and the PPO plan based on anticipated accrual rate increase of about 8.5%. The yellow column will show you those increases, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
One other comment I might make is the columns to the left, you see the various years, and that next column is the number of people who are currently in those particular categories, or enrolled in those particular categories.
As of June 4th, yes, sir.
So, for example, the 0 to 9, we have nobody in that. Surprise, surprise, they pay 100% of the premium. 10 to 14, we have 3 people that are in the PPO plan. 15 to 19, we have a total of 24 people. And then as you get to the 20 to 24 and the plus 25, that's where the majority of the folks we're covering are in.
Right. The 25 plus is a similar cost split as we provide to our current employees.
Any questions? Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're getting close to the end. So C3, this is our Medicare eligible retirees. Okay, so we have 2 different plans. We have a PSS Senior Supplement Plan and a PMA Medicare Advantage Plan. Both are fully insured plans. Okay, so if it's for retiree only, there are no increases for either of those plans. However, if a retiree is carrying a dependent that is not Medicare eligible, which will mean they will be on the PPO plan, then there is an increase for those plans. Again, that is reflected in the yellow column. And so you can see that there is no increase for employee only or Medicare eligible dependent, but non-Medicare eligible dependents, there is an increase for those.
So we don't have a census on these.
No, we don't. I can get that for you if you'd like me to. I can send that to you.
So the question would be, Commissioner, would you like for them to try to get that for us?
No, I'm fine with voting on it, but I would like
I
to
was
have
going
it.
to see if they knew it off the top of their head, but they don't.
Well, I probably do know a little bit at the top of my head. Typically, I think we have somewhere around 500 folks in the senior supplement and 500 folks in both plans, the senior supplement and the Medicare Advantage plan. Now, with no rate increases. Where you see the rate increase, that's for those dependents that are in the PPO plan. There's about 30 of those total for all of those plans. So the rate increases are impacting about 30 people. Okay?
Thank you, Joyce.
Move approval of C3.
Second. A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And last but not least is Exhibit D, and this is a discussion of the plans that are fully paid by the employees. These are the dental plans and the vision plans that are offered both to the employees and the retirees. We have a dental self-insured PPO plan that is reflecting the increase that I mentioned earlier. The dental fully insured HMO plan, the rates remain the same, and the vision plan, the rates remain the same.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It did cross my mind while you were honoring Captain and Mrs. Slaughter that it might be, I might have to wait to my 100th birthday before we win again.
You might. Been a long season already.
We have 10 items for consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-220. This is annual contract for oil and lubricants. Recommendation be to award on a discount from list price, awarding under Section 1 the primary and secondary vendors, and Section 2 the same as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 4-0.
Item number 2 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-226. This is our annual contract for mechanical and plumbing services. Our recommendation be to award a per hourly labor rate plus percentage markup on parts, awarding to the 6 primary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-229. This is our annual contract for elections printed forms. Recommendation be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding under Section 1 to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors. Section 2, the primary and secondary vendors meeting all specifications.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4.
5. Oh, he was back in the room.
Item 4, also a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-233. This is our annual contract for air filters and filter replacement services. Recommendation be to award a per unit price basis and a discount from list price, according to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors meeting all specifications.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We can skip to item number 6. Again, a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-238. This is annual contract for hydraulic repairs and services. Recommendation be to award on a per hourly labor rate and parts markup percentage, awarding to the 3 primary vendors as shown in court communique meeting all specifications.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 7, bid award recommendation for bid 2019-239, saying a contract for lawn maintenance services. Recommendation be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 8, also a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-240. This is our annual contract for lawn treatment services. Recommendation be toward a per enterprise basis, awarding to a company called True Green.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 9, bid award recommendation for bid 2019-241. This is our annual contract for floor mat and shop towel services. Recommendation be toward a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 10, item in regards to bid 2019-165. This is our annual contract for asphalt road surfacing products. We're asking the court to extend this contract by 30 days. We had an option renewal year. One vendor chose not to renew. It would have created some delivery challenges for at least one or two of the precincts. So we're asking to extend the contract, and we're going to rebid it ASAP.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 13 was an item in regards to a request for offer 2018-197. This was an RFO for elevator maintenance for all county buildings. We had recommended that this be awarded. This is the last option for renewal out of a 5-year contract to ThyssenKrupp Elevator, the amount of $851,851,074.56. This particular contract expires September 30, 2019. We would make that recommendation for renewal, this being the last option.
I asked that this be pulled off of consent because I have a problem with this company as a result of the events that occurred at our county hospital. I thought that I had indicated that that was going to be an issue. I hate that we're pulling it to the point to where we're less than 3 or 4 days from the time that this contract is going to terminate, but I'm not going to support renewing this contract with this particular company, and would have preferred for us to have gone back out for bid and then seen what happened as a result of that. I know that JPS has discontinued the contract with this company. They're now using a company that handles all the equipment, elevator maintenance for the Sundance, this downtown area here. And so I'm the one that asked that this be pulled off of consent.
Well, this is only going to be good for September 24th through June 30th of next year.
Yes, sir. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
It expires
September 30, 2020. As a solution,
September 30.
On an interim basis.
It's for a 1-year extension.
1-year extension.
1 year.
As a temporary solution.
Well, I'm reading her communication and it says June.
It is a 1-year extension, would be if approved. As a temporary solution, we could always go back to ThyssenKrupp and see if they would give us a shorter term extension. Probably, I'll let David speak to that. He, I'm sure, has comments, possibly a 6-month extension. In conversations that we've had before, David indicated to us that they would like to have a consultant involved in helping us write the specifications. This particular contract through the co-op, years ago, we actually fired ThyssenKrupp and Otis. These guys were the last ones standing, and I certainly understand the concerns, and we'll do whatever the court desires. We purchased this through a cooperative, but we could actually go back and see if ThyssenKrupp would be willing to give us a shorter term extension.
I guess my question then might be, are there other companies that we could purchase through a cooperative or through an interlocal agreement with. Again, I really thought I'd made it pretty clear that I was not going to support us renewing this contract with this company, and I'm a little upset the fact that we're giving, we're basically at the 24th, and so we're 6 days away from the contract terminating, and we didn't go out for a bid or even discuss the possibility of going out for a bid.
I didn't understand that, Judge. I apologize. I apologize. I did not get that. I know we went through quite an extensive review during the last year with the auditor's office concerning fees. We actually went to a platinum level service agreement with them, again under the cooperative agreement. We could fast track the project and maybe 120 days, 90 to 120 days, according to getting hold of a consultant. We can certainly check the other cooperatives. I'm not familiar with there are more cooperatives now than there were years ago when we first became into a contractual agreement with Omni. In fact, Omni is a new cooperative.
Is there any reason why we couldn't piggyback off of JPS's contract?
If they put verbiage in their agreement and allowed us to do that, we could. There have been issues in the past, though, with JPS in that they did not advertise those opportunities like we do, which is a legal requirement we have to follow every time. I mean, that's one of the reasons we don't do a lot of cooperative things with JPS right now. They don't advertise. That's the decision came down from the DA's office years ago, and I don't think that they've changed the practice. But we can certainly check into it.
I share the judge's concern with this particular firm.
Understand.
I do too, but I also share a concern that we're not going to have anybody to work on our elevators if they.
That's a problem.
If they break down.
Do we have any idea of what type of performance we've been receiving at Tarrant County?
Yes, sir. David has some comments. I can, from our knowledge, we've had an entirely different experience with ThyssenKrupp, but I'll let David speak to that.
We've had good luck with ThyssenKrupp, and elevators are not a topic of discussion in our shop, and that tells me a lot because they're working just fine. That's a function a lot of because of the mechanics that they've got working on our property.
But we're not trying to do the maintenance for this company.
No, sir.
I think JPS might have been doing some of that out there.
Well, no, I think JPS was trying to get somebody out of an elevator that was stuck. And the company basically said, you're not supposed to touch our elevators. So it's a matter, if you were stuck in an elevator, would you be willing to wait 45 minutes to an hour?
Judge Sharp.
For that to happen?
No, but I think that was an exception. I think, though, that they have.
Judge, our policy, our department's policy, every employee signs a piece of paper when they come on board that if you call it elevator entrapment policy, and they will not reset any elevators, and they will not get anybody off the elevator until the elevator contractor shows up.
So just pause right there. How many of y'all in the audience remember signing that statement?
No, my employees. My department employees.
I didn't understand that either, so I'm glad you guys. I was just getting ready to ask.
My employees have been instructed, my 118 employees have been instructed not to get anybody off an elevator. They go up and turn the power off. They do not reset them. We've been doing that for about 20 years.
And have you ever had an employee stuck, such as the case of JPS?
We've had 20 entrapments in the last 12 months.
Was there
entrapment is employees, a county employee.
Elevator.
In the elevator, an inmate, public.
I think the situation at JPS might have been a little different. I think a lady
stuck. So you would have suggested
halfway in, halfway out the door.
Yeah. I don't know the situation, but
not the door. but
In between floors.
the header,
The elevator pinned the person, and it didn't
she was
just.
hanging out the elevator, trying to get out when it jumped up.
Of course, we wouldn't let an employee.
Yeah,
or-
like,
I
you
mean,
know,
we had
life
an
and
entrapment.
death
We tried to get them
situation.
out if they were in that situation.
Then you have just messed with the maintenance of the elevator.
No, there's a difference.
No, there's not. In
I
that
would-
situation, they were upset, and their argument was, you were not supposed to have messed with that elevator until their employee got on.
I was trapped in an elevator probably 6-8 months ago in this building. And I stayed in that thing until the technicians from this company came and they popped that door open.
We're talking two different things.
I know we are.
The JPS situation, you had a woman half in, half out. She was trying to get out of the elevator, and the elevator jumped up.
She was pinned.
Caught her.
And I will tell you, I've also had another individual tell me of an issue where, for however reason, that their child got stuck in the elevator. They were outside, and the elevator stuck, and it ended up being 45 minutes because the facility decided to do exactly what we do. And so for 45 minutes, the child was in the elevator, the mother was outside trying to keep the child calm. And they could have opened the door, but they chose not to open the door because this was the deal with the elevator company. And in my opinion, that is not right. Now, and that's just my opinion. But if we've got people who can open the door and there's someone stuck in that elevator, then I wish that we would open the door. And so, for that reason, I don't want to use this company.
So I'd like to make sure that I clearly understand what our options are. So can you share them?
Unpopular option would be to approve extension for a year. Second option would be to contact ThyssenKrupp, see if they would agree to a shorter term agreement, 3 to 6 months. Again, I've got to respect David's conversations to me earlier, and that we would get a consultant involved in helping us write the specifications. This is a complicated bid document, and that's about it. About the only two options that we have.
Jack, do you know on this contract that we have with this particular company, is there a 30-day no cancellation?
For all of them.
No fault.
All of them there would be, yes.
So you also have a 30-day cancellation on this. So as a suggestion, if the court would like to go out and do an RFP for an elevator service, we can do that. If we have a 30-day cancellation clause in the contract, then we can end this contract whenever we're ready to.
Well, they're going to know that since we, just by procedure, we always go back and get a written confirmation that they would like to agree to the option renewal year, whatever that is, whatever that term is. This one happens to be a year, which most of them are. So we've already gotten that from them. So they're going to know pretty quick that there are issues.
And watch the video, they're going to know quicker than that.
Probably by now, as we speak. Yes, sir.
Well, so and to Commissioner Johnson's point, though, is if we weren't to renew this today and the contract expires on the 30th, then what happens with the maintenance of the elevators?
I'm sure they would probably do time and materials. Our response time might not be what it is today. I would hope that it would be. The next question would be, I would think that we would probably have to send them a copy of the bid document to allow them to rebid if we put that back on the street. We've not formally Just the fact that you don't renew choose to renew the contract doesn't blackball them, if you wish to use that terminology. So we would need to decide that, give them the opportunity. Prices may go up, they probably won't go down.
Based upon the fact that we've got a 30-day out provision in this contract, I move that we accept the 1-year extension and go ahead and start the process of rebidding this contract.
Oh, what kind of timeline for rebidding? You said there was an expedited.
To them.
We fast track everything we do. We've certainly put this one at the top of the pile.
So what does that mean in your estimation?
We can start trying to find consultants today. We've not written specifications for this particular contract in my time here.
Okay,
so we can start that.
I want an estimate. I don't want this walking out of here and 6 months later we still haven't got it done.
It won't be 6 months.
So give me an estimate, David. And I guess the other thing I would like to know is if there are other companies that we could use through and we could piggyback on there through an interlocal agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know that and know the availability of that and maybe getting a bid on that.
There's, like I said before, there.
For lack of a second.
I'll second it, but I want to know more details before I'm going to vote on whether I'm going to go forward, whether I'm going to vote to go forward on this. I want a commitment from y'all as to when this process is going to hopefully be through.
Judge, my department will have something to the purchasing department within 30 days. That's a technical specification part of it.
Take us 2 weeks to advertise. If it's an RFP, we probably should leave it on the street a month. So 90 days we could make it happen at the longest.
Okay. And then so could you also then work on possible interlocal agreements, and if y'all can.
Yeah, like I said, there's probably at least 4 to 6 more cooperatives that are now active than there were when we did this. We can look at the federal level. We can look. We'll turn over every rock.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Can I just get a repeat on the motion?
You bet.
That we accept the 1-year extension of the existing contract and immediately proceed to rebid. And I'm willing to accept a 90-day time period.
Well, I hate to bring up something again. We were talking a moment ago about a situation that happened at JPS. Facility says that they don't touch an elevator. If a situation happened here, such as happened at JPS, would we call 911?
Probably.
Yeah.
And okay, so they get here in 5 minutes, and the elevator company says they'll be here within 45 minutes. Does fire department or paramedics just stand there?
Wow.
I doubt it. Maybe we need to look at our policy and what we can do in a situation like that.
I think that needs to be addressed in the contract, and I'm sure there'll be someone who'll be willing to come and explain to us why our people can't be trained on how to open the door of an elevator until somebody who's under a very stiff union contract can get there and open the blank door.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes, I have an interlocal agreement, so I move for approval of item N1A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the
Approval
addendum.
of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have a public comment from a Mr. Leroy Pena.
And I have one announcement.
Okay. Mr. Pena, please restate your name and your address.
Leroy Pena, 3449 South Hill Street.
Thank you very much for being here. I just wanted to say beforehand, because the item that you're going to discuss is not on the agenda, we can't respond, by state law, we can't respond to you. Now, what will normally happen is that we'll ask you to talk with Mr. Manius or one of the other members in the audience about the issue, but hopefully, we'll still be able to.
Okay. As most of you here know, there is an extensive Native history here in Tarrant County. I mean, we have Quanah Parker Park, and he was all over this place. And Bird's Fort is in Arlington. That's where Sam Houston came, brought his Indian delegation. I'm a member of the Lipan Apache tribe of Texas, and we were more or less his bodyguards. He was our best ally in the state. To date, there are 144 separate cities, municipalities, counties, school districts around the country that are observing Indigenous Peoples Day. The state of Texas here, it's Dallas, the city of Fort Worth, Dallas County, Bexar County, Austin, El Paso, and that's so far. So what we're trying to do is, I've already gone to speak with the city council, with Mayor Price, and they've already agreed to do an observance, and also Fort Worth ISD. So we would like to get the county on board so we can make it a whole thing citywide here. My people, I don't know if any of you are familiar with a little town southwest of here called Lipan. Some of you might have passed. That's named after my tribe. We had a hunting ground there and an encampment there for a while. So this is like the main tribes that were here in Tarrant County were the Caddo, the Wichita, and the Kiowa. And mine were occasional visitors here. The word Texas actually comes from the Caddo people. A lot of you know this. Texas, it means friend. So I think it's been a long time, but I've found that Tarrant County has always been friendly to its indigenous history, and I think it's time that we can all get on board on something where we can honor the original inhabitants of this county. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much for coming out today.
Okay,
if you will either contact Mr. Manius and then or my office after, we will take care of helping.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Helping you out. Thank you very much for your comments. There being nothing else at this time, then we will recess.
I've got an announcement.
I'm sorry, you told me that.
It's all right. So this Saturday, we will be celebrating the 2019 Egg Roll Festival, hosted by the Tarrant County Asian American Chamber of Commerce. It's a celebration of Asian culture, arts, and food, and it will be at Benton Plaza in Precinct 2 from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's at 1818 East Pioneer Parkway. There will be a number of community leaders, business leaders, opportunities for flu shots, medical screenings, and then, of course, just a celebration of the Mid-Autumn recognition for the Asian community. So this is a complimentary event. Me and my staff, we will be out there, and we just wanted to make sure we share that with the community.
Thank you. We will now recess our open meeting to proceed to close to discuss items exempt under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the
Let's do this.
Having returned from our closed session, we will now address the following matter.
Members of the court, we could go to item 9G1. This is the proposed rental rates for voting. Marcy, if you come up, please.
So before the closed session, we were talking about the need to approve rental rates for us to be able, the elections department to be able to finish up the contracts and prepare for the November 5th election. I'll take the questions from the court.
I'd like to try a motion. I move that we adopt the matching rate, except in the instances where we've got a November election and cities or other entities have an item on the same ballot with no additional voting places involved. I would suggest that we charge them $5 for that situation, since we've been advised by our attorneys that we can't make it free.
I second that motion.
So let me be sure I understand. Are you saying, again, we've been told we can't do it for free, but are you saying just a flat $5 or $5 per machine plus the actual cost of the, well, I guess it would be the actual cost of the labor and stuff, because
there is no labor. It's de minimis.
So you're saying, I need clarification. I mean, I think I agree with you, but I'm not I think the question is it per machine, or is it just $5 regardless of how many locations you may have within your particular locale?
So the question is it $5 per machine per location?
Well, there will be several pieces of equipment at each location. You're going to have them. And so...
The Duo, the Scan, the controller, right?
Correct.
My motion is $5 flat.
Flat, all types of equipment, $5 or 5 per site? I'm sorry to ask again, but I want to make sure I understand.
I'm sorry. Say it louder.
I'm sorry. Was it $5 per location, or was it 5 regardless of the type of machine? Per machine, I guess is the question.
Because there's only one type of machine.
Right. So if you recall, you vote on a terminal and it prints it, and then you go to the scanner.
So Fort Worth may have 100 different locations. And so the question is it $5 per location? Is it $5? Is it a flat $5 for all locations, or is it $5 per piece of equipment?
Correct. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Let's start out with a $5 flat fee regardless of the number of locations, and see if we got 3 votes for that.
You just second.
I did second.
Okay, so we got that. Okay.
So I want to make sure I understand the motion. It's $5 flat fee, period. So
$5. Trade right in cash.
Which means if every entity in Tarrant County, which I think is somewhere in the neighborhood, somewhere between 65 and 70, if every entity had something on the ballot, then we would be looking at somewhere between
$535
for the total revenue.
But there's no additional cost to us for putting those items on the ballot.
Commissioner, I'm not arguing with you one bit. I just want to be sure we understand that that's what we're talking about, so that we don't walk out of here and we end up next week asking this question again.
And
So you can use the college district as a great example, because they're going to have an item on the agenda that will be countywide. And so Commissioner Brooks' motion would be the fee that we would charge the college district, the total fee would be $5.
That's not correct.
Unless they're asking for
Unless they have-
exceptions, right?
Unless they require additional locations,
Right.
then they have to pay for those additional
Right. The
locations.
sites above and beyond, that would be different, but
may I ask?
Because we are required to host to conduct the election anyway, right?
May I ask?
So the motion right now is we pick all of the locations. And that's the only thing we're worried about. And if you got something on the ballot, you're gonna pay $5, and if you don't, you don't. And it doesn't make any difference how many locations you have. Now, if you decide, I want a location that y'all weren't gonna put on the ballot, then we're gonna go back to calculating it based upon cost of the hard cost. And from an equipment standpoint, are we gonna
Personnel standpoint.
are we gonna charge anything for equipment?
Sure.
Okay,
He's
so
saying $50-something thousand to the TCC
For the
for equipment and manpower to run those. Now,
Y'all trying to pack too much into one motion.
well,
Yeah,
but this
that's
is
why-
kind of important. On those voting machines that are at TCC in November, they got everything on it.
correct.
Not just TCC's item.
Correct.
from this point forward, they're gonna always have that.
Correct. So someone from Arlington could show up at that site and vote there anyway.
Okay, so let's first off, your motion pertains only to those locations that is an election, or that as a court, we choose to approve for early voting and for election day.
That's correct.
So, if everybody will understand, that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about somebody who wants a special site. We'll talk about that next. But for this purpose, what we're saying is, we're going to charge any entity that has something on the ballot $5 to have that on the ballot,
Because we are required to.
because we are required to.
My motion also includes charging the matching rate for all other elections.
okay.
Per machine.
Okay, so now we're gonna complicate that original motion, and now we're gonna have to decide what we're gonna do for those other sites.
No, because these all other elections are the entities' elections, and we don't have anything to do with the sites. They choose them, they pay for them.
I'm talking about things like the May elections.
Right.
Well, okay, but I think that the May elections will be billed at the same amount that we would be billing for a requested location beyond what we have set as the court as the regular locations.
That's not my motion, but if you want to make a substitute motion, go right ahead.
Okay.
Are you going to?
I'm going to, because
I will withdraw my second for the moment.
Fine.
I want to first establish a rate that says if we've set our locations, we go out, and if a city or any other taxing entity who's got a issue on the ballot, we will charge them $5 to put that issue on the ballot. That's for the November elections. That's my motion.
Glenn, would that be our selected locations?
Our selected locations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any questions about what that motion is? Please vote. Motion passes 4-1. Okay. Now, for the municipal elections or for the May elections, now I won't say just municipal, for the May elections, and or for any special requested location, we will charge the entities based upon actual out-of-pocket costs for supplies and labor. And in the numbers that you gave us previously, did you have, let's just take, for example, the 55,000, which is about, I think, 11,000 per site for the college that you've estimated to TCC.
Correct, but those are early voting sites, right? So they're open 2 weeks.
Well, adding one day ain't gonna make a whole lot of difference. It's just gonna add to the cost of the.
Just clarifying it for the court.
It's just gonna add to the cost of the labor, actual cost. Had you built anything in there for an allocation of a portion of the cost of the equipment?
Yes, we haven't billed anyone. We haven't even sent out the contract.
How much have you put in there for?
The matching rate.
What's the matching rate?
95 for a dual, 155 for a scan, and 105 for a controller.
And how
Which
did
was the other part of my motion.
And how did you come up with those amounts?
The scanner and the controller, we had equivalent equipment. They used to be called the JVC and the eScan, so I matched those. So wherever you had a scanner, you're paying the same thing for the newer one and the equivalent JVC. And the dual, literally trial and error until I found a number that said this is generating about the same cost.
My understanding of the matching rate is that it raises the same amount of dollars going forward as we raised before we bought this new equipment.
And that's impossible to be accurate because when we bought this new equipment, we're putting machines in a place that we've never had machines before.
As close as I could get, but.
So, again, you have made absolutely sure that none of those numbers you just gave are more than 10% of the cost of that particular piece of equipment.
Correct, because those would have been the max rate on the table.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, in no instance is it more than that. No. Okay, so I'm going to make, my motion is hard costs plus whatever rates you just specified with regards to the equipment being placed in whatever location they choose to place it in.
I would argue that we want these entities to use our equipment and to charge them more than either of these three options, the matching rate, the low rate, or the mid rate. We'll price them out of the market.
Is there a second to the motion?
Nope.
Well, so isn't the motion to use a matching rate?
No.
No? Okay. Will you repeat what the motion is?
Hell, I don't know.
I haven't made a motion.
Yeah, the motion,
I thought
his
the judge-
motion was cost plus.
I thought that my motion was hard costs plus some amortization or some cost associated with the actual cost of the machines that were going to be at a particular location. If we choose only to do hard costs and we don't amortize any of the value of the machines, I might be fine with that. Then we would basically not recover the cost of the equipment, which I, again, don't have a problem with that. But he indicated that the number that we're using and that we have already billed or are fixing to bill TCC for was the hard costs plus some rate per machine that was going to be placed at each one of those different locations.
Correct.
And that's how he came up with the 11,000 per location.
So then using these columns, right, would that be the matching rate or the low rate or
The matching rate.
The matching rate. Okay. So you just said it differently, but it's the matching rate.
What do you define as matching rate?
What you just said, and I just asked him if that was the matching. How did he, based off of how he came up with those numbers, which column would that fall under? And he said the matching rate.
But I don't, this is the bean counter, and I apologize, but the matching rate has never been charged to one of those entities because the entities will never have had as much equipment as they're going to have in this upcoming election. So it will never match, it will always be significantly more because we're now putting machines in there that they've not had before. So
Do
please
you have any
understand.
idea what other counties are doing?
They are the few ones that I've seen. They're using some rate, not necessarily the maximum. I haven't seen any county max out, but they are using rates. They're not going really low, I guess.
So, Hyder, the contracts that you're trying to enter into, is it for an entire fiscal year, or is it just for the November election?
Just for the November election. Every election we have to make a new contract because the entities that share the contract are different.
So the Commissioners Court has already, through a motion that passed 4-1, has already addressed the issue of the November election.
Except for the machines that TCC is fixing to place at the 5 locations that they have chosen to ask for that we did not pick.
So if you want to address just the November election, then you focus on that particular item, and then I think Commissioner Brooks had actually tried to get there with his motion, but that's a question maybe Commissioner Brooks needs to answer. So, Hyder, let me try to get us all out of this. So, when you calculated the rates for TCC, so it was labor and it was the rental of equipment. Is that correct?
Correct, and consumables and.
Yeah, I understand. So you set a rate per machine. Now, when you set the rate for the machine, there's really 3 devices that we're looking at. We're looking at the machine, the printer, and then the counter.
Correct.
And so were those rates similar to the rates that we had currently charged with the old system?
Yeah.
So percentage-wise, we'd always have 2 pieces of equipment in the old system. So is this 1.5 times the value we would have chosen from the old system?
On election day, on early voting, which is the
We're talking about early voting only.
Yeah, then you will have about the same amount of machines. You will have one scanner you didn't have before, but you'll have the same amount of, because people used to vote on an electronic on early voting. So you'll have fairly the same amount of equipment, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that was
For
the
early
question,
voting.
Judge, you had raised about a larger number of pieces of equipment on early voting.
And so on election day itself, we're not going to charge them anything for the additional machines that would be, because that would be early voting. So TCC, let's take them for example. On election day, will those 5 campuses also have equipment on that day?
No, sir.
Do they know that?
They're not.
Yes, they do.
They only requested early voting locations. So the rest.
So I guess I still feel okay with my motion as I've made it.
Okay, so then, Commissioner Brooks, will you help me understand how his motion is different than yours? I know you were trying to combine them, but
We can't hear you.
I don't think that.
I just asked what's the difference between the judge's motion and Commissioner Brooks's motion that he originally made when he was working to combine the two.
Both
My
of them have
motion-
for a lack of a second so far.
My motion referred only to the rental price of the equipment. his motion addresses the rental price of the equipment plus all other costs, which I'm unable to determine what those are.
So I just asked Hyder a question. When you calculated the TCC issue, the numbers that he used to generate the $11,000 per site, that was, he used the matching rate.
For the rental of the equipment.
And
I'm fine with that.
But then he added to that the dollar cost as far as labor and supplies.
I think that would have all been calculated in anyway on
right.
the matching rate.
So it's the same thing. You're all just saying it differently.
Yeah, the estimations that I have, everything that I've shared with you is based on the same process we had, which was to bill the entities or to have them pay their share of the cost of the election, labor, supplies, truck rentals, fuel, anything that we need. And then one of those is the rental of the equipment. So to kind of make it something that would be within what they expect to see, I used a matching rate, because in the case of early voting, you have pretty much the same amount of equipment. You're adding one scanner, but the polling place is going to look fairly the same as it did before.
And the matching rate is still the lowest of.
It's the lowest of.
Right, it's the lowest of all the rates.
Right, and again, this is a decision of the court. To me, matching rate was like, I didn't think that the court might consider going lower than we were before, right? So using a.
I second the judge's motion for the sake of moving forward.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Judge, I may ask that we recognize, that you recognize that Commissioner Brooks' original motion did die for lack of a second, so that's not voted out.
Okay.
He had a second.
But you withdrew it.
Yes, you withdrew it, and so that original motion.
Hell, that was 2 motions ago.
3.
That was last week.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
The early voting schedule?
Thank God you're right.
I thought we were going to wait on that.
Can we do that?
We can do that.
I would
if you'd
prefer.
like to,
I would
yes.
prefer.
Well, I mean, when do we need to vote on it? What's the?
No later than next week if you want to, but if you can do it today, it would be much better.
No, I need more information.
Okay.
Okay.
Given that, we're adjourned.